They say you never truly know the person sleeping next to you. I used to laugh at that saying. I used to think my marriage was different, special, unbreakable. But now, as I sit here in the darkness of our bedroom, watching the empty space where my husband should be, I realize how dangerously naive I was. Because the truth, I discovered wasn't just devastating, it was something I could never have imagined in my darkest nightmares. My name is Sarah Matthews, and 6 months ago, I had what most people would call a perfect life. A beautiful home in the suburbs, a successful career as a graphic designer, and most importantly, a husband I adored. Marcus and I had been married for 8 years, together for 10. He was my college sweetheart, my best friend, my everything. Marcus worked as a software engineer at a tech company downtown. He was the kind of husband every woman dreams of. Attentive, loving, supportive. He remembered anniversaries, brought me coffee in bed, and still looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world, even on my worst days. But 3 months ago, everything changed. It was a Tuesday night in September when I first woke up to find Marcus gone. The clock on our nightstand glowed. 2:47 a.m. His side of the bed was cold, as if he'd been gone for a while. I assumed he couldn't sleep and had gone downstairs to watch TV or work on a project. Marcus sometimes had insomnia when he was stressed about work deadlines. I pulled on my robe and padded downstairs, expecting to find him on the couch with his laptop. But the house was dark, empty. His car was still in the driveway. But Marcus was nowhere to be found. My heart started racing. I checked every room, calling his name softly, trying not to panic. Then I heard the front door open. Marcus walked in, looking startled to see me standing there in the living room. He was fully dressed in jeans and a dark hoodie, his hair slightly disheveled. "Sarah, what are you doing up?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of something I couldn't quite place. "Guilt? Fear? I could ask you the same thing," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where were you?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Couldn't sleep. Went for a walk to clear my head. Work's been crazy lately." It was a reasonable explanation. I wanted to believe him. I chose to believe him. "You scared me," I said, moving closer to hug him. "Next time, wake me up. We could walk together." He held me tight, maybe a little too tight. "I didn't want to disturb you. You looked so peaceful." We went back to bed, and I fell asleep in his arms, pushing away the small voice in my head that whispered something wasn't right. Over the next few weeks, it happened again. And again. And again. Sometimes once a week, sometimes twice. Always in the middle of the night. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. Marcus would slip out of bed, thinking I was asleep, and disappear for an hour or two. Each time I confronted him, he had an explanation ready. He couldn't sleep. He needed to walk. He went to his car to listen to music and think. He sat on the porch to look at the stars. Work stress. Life stress. Too much coffee. The explanations were always reasonable. Always delivered with that same warm smile I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. But they were starting to feel rehearsed, like lines from a script he'd memorized. I tried to ignore the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. I told myself I was being paranoid, that marriage required trust, that Marcus had never given me a reason to doubt him. But then I started noticing other things. The way he kept his phone face down all the time, the way he'd changed his passcode, something he'd never done in our entire relationship, the mysterious charges on our credit card for gas stations in areas he had no reason to be in, the faint smell of perfume on his clothes sometimes, a scent that definitely wasn't mine. I did what any woman in my position would do. I started investigating. At first, it was small things. Checking his pockets before doing laundry, looking through the car for receipts, paying attention to his patterns, his moods, his excuses. Then I got more serious. I checked our phone records online. Long calls to an unknown number, always late at night. I looked at our credit card statements, More carefully, charges at restaurants I'd never heard of, stores and neighborhoods we never visited together. One night after Marcus fell asleep, I unlocked his phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it twice. I felt like a criminal, like I was betraying our marriage by not trusting him. But the alternative, continuing to live in denial, felt worse. I went through his text messages first. Nothing suspicious with names I recognized, but then I found a thread with a contact saved only as J. No profile picture, just an initial. My heart pounded as I opened the conversation. The messages were cryptic. Same time tonight? I'll be there. Can't wait to see you. This is getting harder to hide. I felt sick. This was it. The evidence I'd been dreading. Marcus was having an affair. I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning over breakfast, I decided to confront him directly. Marcus, we need to talk, I said, my coffee cup trembling slightly in my hands. He looked up from his phone, and for just a moment, I saw something flash across his face. Fear, sadness. It was gone before I could identify it. What's wrong, honey? He asked, his voice gentle. Where do you go at night? I asked bluntly. No more dancing around it. No more accepting vague excuses. The color drained from his face. He set his phone down slowly, deliberately, as if buying time to think. Sarah, Don't, I interrupted, my voice cracking. Don't lie to me anymore. I know something's going on. The late-night disappearances, the mysterious phone calls, the credit card charges, just tell me the truth. Are you having an affair? The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, his eyes filling with tears. No, he said firmly. God, no, Sarah, I would never... Then what? I demanded, my own tears starting to fall. What are you hiding from me? Why won't you tell me where you go? Why all the secrecy? He stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair in frustration. I can't tell you. Can't or won't? Both, he said miserably. Sarah, please. You have to trust me. What I'm doing, it's not what you think. But I can't explain it. Not yet. That's not good enough, I shouted, standing up too. We're married, Marcus. We're supposed to share everything. How can I trust you when you're literally sneaking out of our house in the middle of the night? That conversation ended with both of us in tears and nothing resolved. Marcus begged me to give him more time, promised that he would explain everything soon, swore on everything he held sacred that he wasn't cheating on me, and like a fool I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative, that my marriage was falling apart, that the man I loved was a stranger, was too painful to accept. But I also couldn't just sit back and wait. I needed answers. So I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to follow him. The following Tuesday, I pretended to take a sleeping pill before bed. I made a show of being drowsy, of struggling to keep my eyes open as we watched TV together. Marcus held my hand, kissed my forehead, told me he loved me. Those words felt like knives in my heart because I didn't know if they were true anymore. We went to bed at 11 p.m. I lay perfectly still, controlling my breathing, pretending to be in deep sleep. At 2:15 a.m., I felt Marcus carefully extract his arm from under my head. He slipped out of bed with practiced silence, grabbed clothes from his drawer, and left the room. I waited 5 minutes, the longest 5 minutes of my life, before getting up. I was already dressed in dark clothes under my pajamas. I grabbed my car keys and phone and crept downstairs. Through the window, I saw Marcus getting into his car. My car was parked on the street, strategically positioned for a quick exit. I ran out, started the engine, and waited until his taillights disappeared around the corner before following. Marcus drove to a part of town I'd never been to, an older neighborhood with rundown houses and overgrown yards. He pulled up in front of a small, nondescript house with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Every instinct told me to turn around, to go home. to preserve whatever was left of my illusions about my marriage. But I didn't. I couldn't. I parked a few houses down and watched as Marcus got out of his car. He looked around nervously before walking up to the front door. He didn't knock. He had a key. He let himself in. My entire body was shaking. This was it. The other woman's house. The proof of his betrayal. But I'd come this far. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I got out of my car and crept toward the house, staying in the shadows. The front windows had curtains drawn, but there was a light on inside. I moved around to the side of the house, where there was a small window, probably a bathroom with the curtain partially open. What I saw through that window would haunt me forever. Inside the house, Marcus stood in what looked like a small, cluttered living room. And he wasn't alone. But it wasn't a mistress. It wasn't another woman in his arms. It was a little girl. She looked about 5 years old with dark curly hair and big brown eyes. She was sitting on a worn couch, wearing princess pajamas, holding a stuffed rabbit. And Marcus was kneeling in front of her, tears streaming down his face, holding her small hands in his. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the love in every gesture, every expression. The way he brushed her hair from her face, the way she smiled at him, the way he hugged her like she was the most precious thing in the world. And then an older woman entered the room, maybe in her 60s, with gray hair and a tired face. She handed Marcus what looked like medication and a glass of water. He helped the little girl take it, then kissed her forehead. My mind was reeling. Nothing made sense. Who was this child? Why was Marcus here? Why was this a secret? I walked up to the front door and knocked. Hard. Inside, I heard surprised voices, movement. Then the door opened and Marcus stood there, his face going white as a sheet when he saw me. "Sarah," he whispered, looking like he might faint. "Who is she?" I demanded, pushing past him into the house. The older woman stood protectively in front of the little girl, who was now looking at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Please," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Please, let me explain." "Then explain," I shouted. "Explain why my husband has been sneaking out to visit a child I've never heard of. Explain why you've been lying to me for months." The older woman spoke, her voice surprisingly gentle. "Maybe we should talk in the kitchen. Lily doesn't need to hear this." "Lily?" I repeated, looking at the little girl. She had Marcus's eyes. Oh, God, she had Marcus's eyes. In the cramped kitchen of that run-down house, Marcus told me the truth. All of it, and with every word, my world shattered and reformed into something I didn't recognize. "Her name is Lily," Marcus began, his voice hoarse. "She's my daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Your daughter?" "From before we met," he rushed to explain. "Sarah, I swear this happened before us. I was 19, stupid, in a relationship that lasted 3 months. Her mother, Emma, told me she was pregnant right before we broke up. I wanted to be involved, but Emma's parents, they had money, influence. They convinced Emma that I was too young, too broke, too irresponsible to be a father. They cut me out completely. Got a restraining order when I tried to fight it. I was just a broke college kid. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I couldn't..." He broke down sobbing. The older woman, I realized she must be Emma's mother, continued the story. "Emma died 2 years ago," she said quietly. "Cancer." Before she passed, she told me the truth about Marcus. How we'd misjudged him. How she'd regretted keeping him from Lily. She made me promise to find him, to let him know his daughter. "Lily has acute lymphoblastic leukemia," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She was diagnosed a year ago. She's been through chemo, radiation, everything. She needs a bone marrow transplant, and I'm the only match." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "A year ago? You've known about her for a year?" "I've known about her for 2 years, he admitted. "Since right after Emma died. But I didn't tell you because I was scared. Scared you'd leave me. Scared you'd think I'd lied to you our entire relationship. scared of how complicated it would make everything. And the leukemia? For the past 3 months, she's been getting worse. The doctors said. They said she might not have much time if we don't act soon. I've been coming here every night because I missed so much of her life already. Sarah, I can't miss anymore. Every night might be... He couldn't finish the sentence. The older woman, Margaret, she told me to call her, spoke again. We tried to take care of her. I sold my house to pay for treatments. But it's not enough. And she needs her father. She needs Marcus. Not just his bone marrow, she needs him. I stood there in that kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of everything I thought I knew about my life. And I didn't even know what I felt. Betrayed, yes. Marcus had kept this massive secret from me. But how could I be angry when a child was dying? Hurt, absolutely. How could he not trust me with this? But also, guilty for ever suspecting him of something. So mundane as an affair when he was facing something so impossibly difficult. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, tears streaming down my face. I'm your wife, Marcus. Did you really think I wouldn't understand? Wouldn't support you? I was terrified, he admitted. We talked about having kids someday, but you weren't ready yet. And then to suddenly tell you I already have a daughter who's dying, a daughter who will need so much, not just from me, but from us. How do you spring that on someone? By trusting them, I shouted. By giving them a chance to stand by you. I thought you were cheating on me, Marcus. I thought you'd stopped loving me. Do you know how much that hurt? How many nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I'd done wrong. I need to go, I said, turning toward the door. Sarah, please. I need time, I said firmly. It's too much. I need to process this. But as I walked toward the front door, I passed the living room. Lily was still sitting on the couch, watching me with those big brown eyes, Marcus's eyes. She looked so small, so fragile, with her thin arms and pale skin and the medical port visible under her pajama collar. Are you Daddy's wife? She asked in a small voice. I stopped, turned, looked at this child, who had unknowingly turned my world upside down. Yes, I managed to say. She smiled, a beautiful, innocent smile that lit up her entire face despite her obvious illness. He talks about you all the time. He says you're the most wonderful person in the world. He says you're brave and kind and beautiful. He loves you so, so much. Those words broke something in me. Or maybe fixed something. I wasn't sure. What's your rabbit's name? I asked, sitting down on the couch beside her. Mr. Hopscotch, she said proudly. Daddy got him for me. He comes to visit every night and reads me stories. He says he has a lot of lost time to make up for. I stayed that night. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was Lily's smile, or Marcus's tears, or my own desperate need to understand this new reality. But I stayed. I sat on that worn couch and listened as Lily told me about her stuffed animals, her favorite cartoons, the stories her daddy read her. Marcus sat beside me, our hands eventually finding each other, holding tight like lifelines in a storm. Margaret made tea and told me about Emma, about Lily's diagnosis, about how scared she was of losing her granddaughter, about how grateful she was when Marcus appeared in their lives, even though it brought up so much pain about how wrong they'd been years ago. I kept him away from his own child, Margaret said, crying. I thought I was protecting Emma, protecting Lily. But I was just being a foolish, prejudiced old woman. And now, she looked at Lily, now my granddaughter is dying, and the only father she's ever known has had to sneak around like a criminal to spend time with her because he was afraid to tell his wife the truth. Those words hit hard, because she was right. This situation, this terrible, heartbreaking situation, had been made worse by secrets and fear and lack of trust. When Lily finally fell asleep around 4 a.m., Marcus and I sat on the porch of that rundown house and had the hardest conversation of our marriage. I should have told you from the beginning, Marcus said. When Margaret first contacted me 2 years ago, I should have come home that day and explained everything. But I was scared, Sarah. Scared of how it would change things between us. It would have changed things, I admitted. But hiding it, lying, that changed things too, Marcus. That broke something between us. I know, he whispered. I know, and I'm so sorry. I've spent 3 months watching our marriage crack apart, knowing I was the one breaking it, but feeling trapped. Because telling you meant risking losing you, but not telling you meant losing you anyway. Why now, I asked. Why did you keep coming here more frequently these past 3 months? His voice broke. Because she's getting worse. Sarah, the doctors say she needs the transplant within the next few weeks, or... He couldn't finish. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything pressing down on us. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, medical consultations, and difficult decisions. Marcus underwent testing to confirm he was still a suitable donor. I took time off work to help Margaret prepare Lily for the transplant. And slowly, painfully, I got to know my husband's daughter. Lily was remarkable. Despite her illness, despite the pain and fear, she had this incredible spirit. She told jokes, drew pictures, sang songs from Disney movies. She talked about her mom with love and sadness. And she talked about Marcus, her daddy, with pure adoration. He says when I get better, we can all go to Disneyland together, she told me one day as I helped her color a picture. All 4 of us. You, me, Daddy, and Grandma. Like a real family. Would you like that? I asked carefully. More than anything, she said, looking up at me with those eyes. Marcus's eyes. I always wanted a mommy again. And Daddy says you're the best mommy anyone could have. I cried in the hospital bathroom for 20 minutes after that conversation. The transplant day arrived. Marcus was nervous, not about the procedure, but about leaving me and Lily while he was in surgery and recovery. I promised I'd stay with Lily every second, that I wouldn't let her be alone. The procedure itself was long and complicated. They harvested Marcus's bone marrow and then hours later, transplanted it into Lily. I held her hand as the IV drip started, watching Marcus's bone marrow, his very essence, his life, flow into his daughter. Is this going to make me better? Lily asked me, her voice small and scared. It's going to give you the best chance, I said honestly. Your daddy is giving you part of himself so you can heal. He's brave, she said. Yes, he is, I agreed, so brave. The weeks following the transplant were some of the hardest of my life. Lily was in isolation to prevent infections while her new immune system developed. Marcus recovered from his procedure, but was emotionally devastated. Every time we had to leave Lily in that sterile room, watching us through glass, Margaret and I formed an unlikely friendship, bonded by our love for the 2 people in that hospital. She told me stories about Emma, about young Marcus trying desperately to be part of his daughter's life, about the mistakes she'd made that she could never take back. Thank you, she told me one night as we sat in the waiting room. Thank you for not leaving him, for not turning your back on Lily. She's family, I said simply. And I meant it. Somewhere along the way, this little girl with her stuffed rabbit and her Disney songs and her father's eyes had become family. Marcus and I also had to rebuild our marriage. It wasn't easy. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. We started couples therapy. We had long, painful conversations about honesty and communication, about fear and secrets and the damage they cause. I see her in my dreams, Marcus confessed one night. Lily, I mean. But in my dreams, she's healthy, running and playing and laughing. And then I wake up and remember she's fighting for her life, and I can't breathe. I held him while he cried, understanding for the first time the impossible weight he'd been carrying alone. 6 weeks after the transplant, we got our first piece of good news. Lily's blood counts were improving. The new bone marrow was engrafting successfully. She wasn't out of the woods yet, but she was fighting. Can I see Daddy today? She asked the doctor during rounds. If he promises not to bring any germs, the doctor said with a smile. Marcus suited up in the sterile gown and gloves and mask and spent 3 hours in that room with Lily, reading to her, holding her hand, singing her songs. I watched through the window, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. The next 3 months were a roller coaster. Lily had good days and bad days. Days when she seemed to be recovering beautifully, and days when setbacks left us terrified. But slowly, steadily, she got stronger. Our life became a balance of work, hospital visits, and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Marcus moved some of his work to remote, so he could be more flexible with hospital schedules. I started bringing my design work to the hospital, creating in that sterile room while Lily colored beside me. We also had to make practical decisions about the future. Where would Lily live when she was released? Margaret was elderly and had exhausted her finances on medical bills. The old house was falling apart. "She should live with us," I said one night, surprising even myself. Marcus looked at me with shock. "Sarah, are you sure? That's a huge commitment. You didn't sign up for this." "No," I agreed. "I didn't. But life doesn't always follow the plan we make. She's your daughter. She's part of you, and—" I paused, trying to find the right words. "And I love her, Marcus. I didn't expect to, but I do. She should be with her father, with us." As I finished writing this story, Lily just came running into my home office. She's 9 now, and she wants to show me a picture she drew in art class. It's of our family, Marcus, me, Lily, and Margaret, standing in front of our house, all holding hands, all smiling. "Do you like it, Mama Sarah?" she asks. "I love it," I say honestly. "Should we frame it?" "Yes," she squeals. "And put it in the living room so everyone can see our family." Our family. These words, which once would have meant just Marcus and me, now encompass so much more. A daughter who came into our lives through secrets and lies and sickness, but who stayed because of love. A grandmother who learned from her mistakes and became part of something beautiful. A marriage that was broken and healed stronger. As Lily runs off to tell Marcus about her drawing, I think about that night I followed him, terrified of what I'd find. I think about the little girl I saw through that window and how she'd change everything. And I realize sometimes the truths we fear most are the truths that set us free. Even when they hurt. Even when they shatter everything we thought we knew.